Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for our session. I wanted to welcome everyone to this session on grids of the future. My name's Natalie. I'll be the moderator today, and I'm an energy analyst at the International Energy Agency. And at the IEA, we increasingly emphasize a simple point, that the energy transition is also a grid transition. That message is especially relevant across Asia. Emerging economies will account for nearly 80% of additional global energy consumption through to 2030, with China remaining the single largest contributor and India and Southeast Asia increasingly playing an important role. At the same time, global electricity demand from data centers rose 17% in 2025, while demand from AI-focused data centers grew even faster. For many systems, the challenge is no longer adding generation, but ensuring that transmission and distribution networks can connect new supply, manage rising peak demand, and use existing assets more efficiently. This is why today's discussion is so timely. The technologies to modernize grids are, in many cases, already available. It's not about technology readiness, but it's also about deployment capacity. Meeting global electricity demand through to 2030 will require annual grid investment to rise around 50% from today's $400 billion US dollars. At the same time, new grid infrastructure can take 5 to 15 years to plan and build. This is much longer than the project development cycle for a lot of the supply and demand that's coming online. Mature grid enhancing technology, such as dynamic line rating and topology optimization, have existed for years. And AI applications in forecasting, predictive maintenance, and asset management are already well established. Yet many solutions remain stuck at pilot scale because of regulatory misalignment, weak data infrastructure, limited operational readiness, skill shortage, and uncertainty over the business case. What is more, many operators remain understandably more comfortable with human-in-the-loop approaches than autonomous systems. That points us to the practical questions that we want to help address today. How do we move from pilot systems to system-wide deployment? How do we value solutions that can unlock capacity, reduce congestion, or defer network investment? And what benefits can fall across the different parts of the system? So we want to look at some of those foundations today, and we are very privileged to have an impressive lineup of speakers to delve into this topic further. During the panel, you're encouraged to submit your questions via the WOVA app. Hopefully, this is day 2. You've already experienced how to manage that. And then we wanted to start by having a special guest speaker, Jiwon, who is a principal energy specialist at the Asian Development Bank, who will discuss some exciting new developments. Jiwon, if you would like to join us on the stage. For the speakers, you have a clicker here to leave on the stage, the next speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So at least I want to make sure that you are all awake after the heavy lunch. So first of all, I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome all of you to our Asia Clean Energy Forum. So as you know, this is our flagship event, and I always feel good to be a part of this forum and see many old and new friends as well. I have given only 7 minutes today for this very short presentation about our Pan-Asia Power Grid Initiative. In short, we call it PAGI. This was announced on 3rd of May 2026 by our ADB president during the ADB annual meeting. So it was also mentioned by our president in his opening remarks as well. So what I will do is I will very quickly take you through what it is, what are we actually doing, and then how you can possibly get involved in this. This is a topic that we all have been discussing, that Asia Pacific is still very much dependent on fossil fuels. You see the emissions are rising and so on and so forth. So this still remains a basic premise in terms of why we need such an initiative as well. So I will not go into the details of that one because this has been discussed very heavily on every sessions that we have been talking about. The same way, again, continuing with that story about the total amount of electricity or energy that we have been using, and then if you look at the CO emissions and also the number of people who do not have access to electricity, and then also modern and reliable electricity, the numbers are also increasing, even though we have seen that there's a lot of progress has been made in the transmission, distribution, and also in the smart grid areas, but we still feel that there's still a lot more to be done as well. Maybe can somebody help me with the slide? Okay, good. But having said that, Asia Pacific region is really rich in the natural and then also renewable energy resources. There is a very good complementarity of these resources in one country and others. These are either seasonal complementarity or also on a daily complementarity. So for example, solar in one country may generate a lot of electricity during the daytime, which can be supplied to another country. And the same way, hydropower in another country can generate electricity at night and supply to the other country as well. So these resources complementarity is very, very important. And as you can see that the peak load time is also shifting when you go from the east to the west of Asia also. So the peak time in Bangkok would be still a kind of a peak summer daytime in India, for example. So I think that will help as well. So this is just a small example of how this resource complementarity can actually help in addressing this huge electricity demand of this electricity in our region. And this is where it shows that how the countries can also work very closely with one another so that everybody benefits also. Next slide, please. So now moving a little further, ADB has been involved in this regional cooperation and integration, RCI. In the CAREC region, there's a lot of activities are going on. In the SASEC region, there's a lot of things are going on. In the GMS region, Greater Mekong region, there's also a lot of things are going on. ASEAN, there is also Asian Power Grid. There's a lot of activities are going on there. And similarly, in the Pacific countries, we have been also working very closely or very actively with the various Pacific organizations also. Same thing is also with BIMSTEC. So ADB is already very actively involved in all of these sub-region. And then this has made some good progress, but at the same time, we also see some, still some challenges, and there needs to be continued work in moving this agenda forward. Next slide, please. So why do we need this Pan-Asia Power Grid Initiative? Well, the ADB is already involved. So what we see is that these sub-regional programs are already making a good progress, but when one country or one sub-region has to deal and work with another sub-region or a country in another sub-region, there is no real platform per se within an ADB. We have been also working and finding a way to do that one, but now activities or cooperation within a sub-region is not really enough. So that's why it has to be from one sub-region to another sub-region as well. So that's why we thought that such an initiative would really help to give a greater momentum in to bridge the energy. Can you go back? Also energy, large-scale renewable energy integration, advanced economic development integration, strengthen resilience and security, and expand connectivity. It's not only within the Asia-Pacific region, but also going to the Middle East and also going to the Europe as well. So you can see that it's a much bigger vision that we are coming forward, and this is where we need to work closely with all the stakeholders as well. And again, this is very much aligned with our ADB strategy 2030, and then also the activities on the climate change, private sector development, and so on, as you can see there. Next slide, please. So what does this mean? So it's basically the package across sub-regional and not sub-regional. That's one thing that I really want to emphasize. The country level sub-regional activities will continue. This is a system integration initiative, not just a project pipeline. It's a platform for all the programs and knowledge sharing. It's also digitalization and market development. It is also unlocking renewable potential in the region, leverage the resource complementarity, as I said earlier, enhance energy security and resilience, and position Asia Pacific as a global clean energy powerhouse. So these are the kind of various pillars that we'll be working under this PAGI initiative. Next slide. So again, as I said earlier, there are a lot of things we still have to happen at the national level, and then also at the sub-regional, and then regional, and also in the inter-regional. So as you can see, all of these activities would be, kind of linked to one another as well. So from our side, it will be a phased approach. Again, starting with the national and moving up. Financing, knowledge, and partnership support will be provided, along with the institutional, market, and the regulatory assistance, so that all of these things can also be realized. Next one. So in terms of, we have, this is more of a vision, but we have this 50 billion mobilized by 2035. So as you can see, this is a very, very large ambition to achieve that one. Out of that 50 billion, about 25 billion that ADB has committed from its own resources, and the rest will come from other co-financiers and also from the private sector. 20 gigawatt renewable capacity, 22,000 circuit kilometer of transmission line. And here this session is also very important because we are also talking about transmission line. This one is not only for building a new transmission line, but using the existing, maybe reconductoring of the existing, and also using existing right-of-ways would really help meet that target. About 200 million people with improved industrial access, 15% emission reduction, and 840,000 targets. So these are the kind of milestones and targets for us, and which through our program we will be monitoring to see how we are getting it there. Next slide, please. We are also, there is also $10 million technical assistance that we are preparing right now. So it will help and prepare the roadmap for how it can be achieved, and also identify some clean energy projects, and also help them develop, and also help on the initiatives and regional cooperation programs, selected utilities, and also the PAGI secretariat will be established here in ADB to help build the partnership and also monitor and also report the progress that we have made on this one. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide. So if you are at the government or ministries, whether you are regulators, power utilities, financiers, investors, project owners, private sector, research consulting and knowledge institutions, all of these stakeholders are very important, and ADB alone will not be able to deliver this one. So we would like to open the invitation to all of you so that we can work together to achieve this very, very ambitious program and initiative where all of us will win. Thank you so much. Look forward to working with you again.
Thank you so much, Chiwan. So we just wanted to check this. Thank you so much, Chiwan, for those great remarks. And next, we wanted to welcome up to the stage Charles Girard, who's the Global Director for Business Development and Finance at CTC Global.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, especially to ADB, and thanks to Dan and Peter for putting on this great event, and to our moderator, especially for saying my last name in French, which is very rare that this happens. I really appreciated that. So what is a smart grid? And so how I like to start usually is, in 1982, Thomas Edison invented in New York the first power plant and the first grid, right? That was the first one. And the power grid, the generation has evolved, yet transmission has stayed the same. And so how do we bring this 19th century industry into the 21st century and adapt to what we need to do today, especially after what I heard from my colleagues on data centers and all this transmission that they want to build? So how do we bridge the gap? And so 20 years ago, CTC Global invented the advanced conductor, patented it. And so basically these are the advantages of it, so the basic advantage. And so you double the capacity, sometimes triple, lots of SAGs benefit, lots of thermal benefit, and a lot of construction benefit. That's why we have a big partnership with Google and Tapestry to get that transmission built to align. Because one thing that was said before is there's a misalignment with the new renewable energy that takes 2 to 3 years to be built, compared with the new the transmission that takes 5 to 10. In my case, I built 4 billion of transmission line when I worked at the World Bank, and it was almost 15 years. And I even built some between Canada and the US, $6 billion project, and it took 20 years. And so that's how we're trying to get advanced conductor to do reconductoring. And also a lot of countries are not, some are definitely looking at it, but also how do we bring energy efficiency? Because the best electron is the one you don't have to generate. And also on resiliency as time goes. So this is 20 years ago. So now we just specialize in conductors. So now we invented a new conductor in partnership with Google and Tapestry. And basically what we did is we put more fiber optic inside of the wire. So 5 years ago, we put 4 fiber optic. So that was a first phase, very limited impact, just to know if the core is broken or not. But now, in 2 months ago, we launched with Google this new product, and we can tell you at every single inch of your line, all of these benefits on the left. And so this is real-time monitoring of your line. And it's not, I heard DLR before. So DLR can do this. We can do this. And so this is going to bring for utilities, for management, for government, a degree of data that has never been achievable before. And that's probably why Tapestry and Google partnered with us, because they want access to the data. Why is the data important? That's the future. SaaS, AI, they're all going to create a lot of new things. So the data will help us better plan. They will help us better manage our lines. And so with that data, and today it's hard for utilities, for government to be able to make the right decision because they don't get access to that data. Or in case of DLR, it's an approximation. And in case of, I've worked with many utilities in the US, and the DLR, some of them, it decreased their capacity. And so it's DLR is like a step forward, but with us, it's embedded inside of the conductor. It brings a new level of accuracy. And in terms of the future, if you see this transmission line, and we have wildfire detection here. And so what's going to happen is our system, GridVista, will determine where the fire is, or where your heat buckle is, or in my case, I'm originally Canadian, where the ice is. Not only where the ice is, how much ice is there? So I can tell you on your 100,000 kilometer line where your problem is. Then what's going to happen? Then we're going to have an interrogator, and then with that interrogator, you can determine the next step. And so Google will use the data, or the utility. It doesn't have to be Google, but Google wants the data. But the utility can take the data, treat it, and then make a decision using AI. And then in a few years, we're not there yet, then we will connect it with a drone. So as you're sleeping at night, and coming from Canada, when I was there, all of my power engineer, I'm sure there's tons of them in the room, what was keeping them sleeping during the winter was the ice load. And so they couldn't sleep during the winter because they was afraid of ice. And so with this new technology, I am able to say where the ice is, send the drone during the night, clean up the line, the worst ice zone, and make sure that while you're sleeping at night, your transmission is pristine. And also, you don't have to overbuild. The same with wildfire. Our company is based in California. Wildfire, you have to lift the lines so that the fire doesn't hit them as much. And now there's drones that go with water, and the drone goes out, waters, and so that's going to really help reduce the risk at the utilities. And so these are all the risks. And there's even more with solar right now. A lot of utilities are losing control of the transmission because it's dual flow now. It used to be just one flow. And so with the dual flow, you don't know if they're heating your wires and they're breaking your wires. So in terms of resiliency, this is bringing a whole new level of accuracy. How are we doing it? So this is the wire that's on the left. So like I said, this wire has the classic benefit that I said earlier, the 20 years ago. So it's the same, you double capacity, everything. But you see in the middle there's a big fiber optic that goes added. And then with that line, there's going to be an interrogator at your substation. And then you're going to choose, depending on this, the real-time monitoring. It could be every minute, it could be every 5 minutes, it could be every 15 minutes, it could be every 30 minutes. And then that light will go back and forth and verify that nothing's happened to your line. And then there will be a software that will help you also to manage that. And that will eventually be connected to your SCADA. And so that's a little bit about the operational part, the hardware part of how that's going to happen. So then people are like, Charles, why would I do that as a utility? Well, in terms of your OPEX, if you think about it, so on the capacity, so we think you can reduce, just like DLR, up to 50% with that, but we have more accuracy. So we are guaranteeing you what you're going to be able to get more capacity. So that's going to be a big game changer. Outages. So what we have looked is that outages, there's some outages that are predictable and some that are unpredictable. So it's about 14% that you could have prevented and the rest is non-prevented. So on that 14% that you could have prevented, we think that we will be able to reduce 11% of that. And so that's a cost on your OPEX. And then on the other part, we believe because I can tell you exactly what the problem is, I can reduce the time to repair it by 80%. So that's going to be a big game changer in terms of outage. And then operational, O&M. So you pay a fortune, trust me, it's O&M is very expensive on transmission line. So what we will bring to there is less field mission, less helicopters that are going to see what's happening on your transmission, because you don't need this anymore, because you will know much faster than the O&M is able to detect. And so this is all the new things that are coming out, and we're very excited to bring this to utilities. Again, it's very new. It's only 2 months old, but definitely the future of transmission, as we all know, that everything in our cars. So I just wanted to show this. This is those a lot of people say, okay, what about the case studies? So this is from the old technology, so it's not with our new, because our new product is there. But I wanted to say also to people that a lot of people know about reconductoring, but on the left, reconductoring can be done hot, and so that's something that also, what I mean by hot, I mean the lights stay on. So that's about it for the presentation. And I wanted to just leave by saying that, I was talking earlier about the electrons and how the best electron is the one you don't have to produce. Well, I will leave you by saying the best transmission line is the one you don't have to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That definitely looks like grids of the future. So our next presentation will be a pre-recorded online remarks from Nikit Abhyankar, who's the co-faculty director for the India Energy and Climate Center at the University of California, Berkeley.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikit Abhyankar, and I am a faculty at the University of California, Berkeley, and the co-faculty director of the India Energy and Climate Center at our university. I'm very sorry I cannot be there in person, and I'm very thankful for inviting me to speak at the event. So today I am going to be talking about how transmission expansion is increasingly becoming one of the binding constraints of our clean energy transition, and what could be the strategies to overcome that problem while maximizing the pace of transmission expansion while minimizing the cost of transmission expansion. So let me start with two snapshots from the US. As shown on the map on the left, the US has more than 2,000 gigawatts of renewable energy waiting in the interconnection queues, as many of you may be aware. A new project in the US now typically needs to wait over 5 years just to get an interconnection agreement, and which is up from nearly about 2 years or so, about a decade ago. At the same time, as shown on the chart on the right, the US electricity demand is set to grow by nearly 125 gigawatts by 2029, driven mainly by the AI data centers. So both of these aspects, the interconnection queue and the rising demand, require a massive transmission build-out in the US. Unfortunately, new transmission build-out is heavily choked in the US. India tells a similar story, but just from the other direction. As shown by the chart on the left, India's electricity demand will grow by 3 to 4 times by 2050. And it has already overtaken the US to become the second largest renewable energy market in the world, adding about 50 gigawatts of renewables last year. And yet, curtailment in India has already become a serious problem. Even on peak demand days, solar is curtailed in the afternoon, and as shown in the chart on the right, wholesale energy prices routinely collapse to near zero in the afternoon, even when the demand peaks in the evening or at night. Of course, this shows partly an energy storage problem, but this is also a major transmission problem. Now, let me be very clear, right? At this scale of demand growth and renewables build out, new transmission is unavoidable. There is no escaping from new greenfield transmission expansion. But here is my core argument today. There is a faster and a cheaper way to add additional transmission capacity by maximizing the existing network first. And this also has a corollary on the generation side. See, the conventional wisdom on transmission planning has been that find the best renewable resource or any resource for that matter, and then build transmission to reach that resource. I want to invert that logic. I would say site your renewables wherever transmission already exists. And the reason we can do this now is that renewable costs have fallen so dramatically that resource quality of the renewables is no longer the binding economic constraint. This was not the case even 5 or 10 years ago. Your LCOE might increase slightly if you site it at suboptimal sites, but the savings from avoided transmission and savings from avoiding the delays in transmission are enormous. And the key question is, how do we expand something that we already have? One of the most powerful levers is reconductoring the existing network with advanced conductors, high temperature, low sag, or HTLS conductors. So these HTLS conductors typically do two things, right? First, they carry nearly double the amount of power compared to conventional conductors. And this is obviously done without violating the sag constraints that all transmission lines need to follow. And second, they have much lower line losses, meaning that for the same amount of power, if carried on HTLS or conventional ACSR conductors, HTLS conductor losses are approximately 25 to 30% lower. So when we looked at this in the US, here is what we found, which is summarized in the slide. Reconductoring the existing grid can meet the majority of the new long-distance transmission needed in the US for a 90% clean grid by 2035. And it does so at less than half the cost of building new lines. This is a major new finding. Moreover, because you can reconductor across far more corridors, the system reaches cheaper and higher quality wind and solar that otherwise would be stranded. And that access to better resources also lowers the overall system costs by nearly $85 billion. That's what we found by 2035. India makes this economics even clearer because India is also actively expanding its transmission grid substantially. India plans to add nearly $100 billion in transmission grid expansion, but most of these new lines that are planning to be built are slated for conventional ACSR conductors. So the question is, can we future-proof this build-out with HTLS conductors instead? And our initial assessment suggests yes. Using HTLS on all new lines in India would cost about $15 billion more upfront, but the loss savings alone would pay that back under 2 to 3 years. More importantly, the transmission capacity of all the new build-out in India effectively doubles from day one. So as demand increases over the coming decades, these corridors already have the headroom to absorb it. This also creates immense resilience benefits, especially during extreme weather or extreme heat events, as we already experienced this summer. Now, reconductoring is not the only lever to accelerating transmission expansion. There are two more levers that deserve serious exploration. First is surplus interconnection. So injecting more clean power at existing yet underutilized grid connection points. And the logic is very simple. Solar runs at approximately 25% capacity factor. So that interconnection of existing solar plants essentially sits idle for the remaining 75% of the time. So why not use it, right? So you add storage at the same project, which enables adding additional solar at the same interconnection point, store it in the batteries, and supply it during the remaining 75% of the time. Of course, provided there is enough land available around that existing solar plant. Similarly, you can inject renewables at expensive coal and gas plants that typically operate at very low capacity factors. Many expensive gas plants operate at 20-25% capacity factors or even lower. The second important lever is using storage as a transmission asset, which essentially raises the line utilization, it defers new transmission investments, and adds ancillary services as well as significant resilience value to the grid. So put together, what we found, at least in India, is reconductoring, surplus interconnection, and storage as a transmission asset sited at transmission substations together can integrate on the order of 1,000 gigawatts of additional renewables within the existing transmission infrastructure. To conclude, maximizing the existing infrastructure use is the fastest and the cheapest way to accelerate transmission expansion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And next, we would like to invite up Susanta Fernando from the National System Operator. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Susanta Fernando from Sri Lanka, National System Operator, Chief Executive Officer. So, my topic is reconductoring to expand high voltage network capacity. I am focusing in one of our projects in Sri Lanka for upgrading of conductors in Mana-Vavuniya transmission line, 71 kilometer long line. So first of all, I will go through our Sri Lanka system. We have installed capacity 7,200 megawatt and annual generation is 18,500 gigawatt hours. From that 18,500 gigawatt hours, our renewable energy share is 62%. So you can see that how far we have gone from this renewable energy. Our target is actually in 2030 to achieve 70%. I think we can easily achieve that target. This is our daily demand variation in Sri Lanka. So this is a weekday. That base load is in coal plant, that is shown in brown color, and that blue color is for our major hydros. And you can see that how we have gone up to that renewable energy in solar. That yellow color is rooftop solar. At this stage, we have already reached 2,400 megawatt solar installed capacity. Renewable energy development zone in Sri Lanka, because we are blessing with renewable energy. Actually, that it's concentrated in northwestern, northern, and northeastern, eastern, and southern mainly. And there are minor extent of renewable energy in north central and central, that mainly from mini hydro and some solar as well. So the right hand side shown in our transmission network, that purple color is our 220 kV line network and green color is our 132 kV network. So far we have up to 220 kV. We are planning to go for 400 kV lines very soon. So you can see that when compared with these two photos, that how we have to increase our transmission network capacity. So we have to strengthen our transmission network capacity to absorb this renewable energy. mainly in northern as well as northeastern and southern. We have already planned to construct some 400 kV lines as well as 220 kV lines to absorb renewable energies. Mannar region is one of our main renewable energy development we are planning. That is for mainly wind plant. We already have our 100 megawatt wind plant in Mannar, Tambapavani. It has already achieved its settled that we have funded by ADB for almost now that we have settled that funding. For Mannar extension, actually that another 50 megawatt plant construct through IPP, Independent Power Purchase. So work is going on. We are expecting to complete that one in 2026 this year. And we have already awarded another contract for 100 megawatt wind power plant based on that, not in the Mannar Island, but landing area, because we have some problems in Mannar Island with that public, because that there are some restrictions to construct further renewable energy, wind plant in Mannar Island. So we are now concentrating to Mannar land. So that Mulikulam one also we are expecting that 2027, that also under IPP we will get this two plant. And Kondachi, that also another area we have identified for wind power plant, 150 megawatt wind power plant. So we received ADB technical assistance for this development work. And Modragam also there's very close by Mulikulam, another 35 megawatt we have identified. Altogether 400 megawatt we have identified, and some are under construction now. So the main problem is how we evacuate this power from this Mannar to Colombo Central, center of the city of the Colombo and suburb. The main problem is we have one transmission line, 220 kV transmission line. It is a single zebra double circuit transmission line. That capacity is not sufficient to evacuate this 400 megawatt generation. So we have two options. One is to construct a new transmission line parallel to this existing line. The other one is to reconduct the existing transmission line. If we go for first option, that is constructing a new transmission line, we have to find out a new line route. It's very difficult in that area because there are a lot of social issues as well as public objections. So then we have selected the second option. There are another two advantages with second option. One is that if we go for new transmission line, we have to spend around 3 years, 1 year for preparatory works. That means IE approval, then land clearing, then objection hearing. Those things takes minimum 1 year. So with that, another 2 years for the construction, it will take almost 3 years. So the other thing is the cost, that we have to spend more money on new transmission line. With these three advantages, we have selected to go for second option, that is reconducting of this existing transmission line. It is a newly constructed line actually, around 6 years old. So for that one, actually we have some savings from our fundings from ADB. We have a discussion with ADB to utilize that funding. So with that funding, we have procured the material, that is HTLS conductor and hardware, because if we are using that existing line, we can easily complete that line within short period, and we required only to replace that conductor and hardware. HTL conductors, there are several types of HTL conductors. I have seen that some of the HTL conductors previous presenters shown that Tasir, SCSR, and ACCC, several conductors worldwide. So it is not a new technology now. Actually, that with that HTL conductors, high tensile, low sag, we can replace that existing conductor with double carrying capacity conductor without sacrificing the sag and tension, because we have to maintain sag tension characteristics as it is for the transmission line to avoid any overloading of these towers. So we don't need new transmission line corridor, and implementation also very fast, and it also cost effective, as I mentioned earlier. It's around 40% of the new line cost is enough for this conductor upgrading. I have shown some comparison in Zebra and HTLS. Actually, this is for our conductor what we use, ACCC Hamburg. So you can see that how that capacity doubled. Then tension also, that we can reduce the tension, as that means this existing line towers, we don't load more than the existing loading. So this is less than the existing loading, and sag also reduce. So implementation, we have some challenges because this is new technology for Sri Lanka. So and that handling this conductor, this TLS conductor also, we have to have some new technologies. So we have selected qualified contractors for this one, and we have now already completed one circuit, conductor stringing, and it has already energized. Because this line, we cannot shut down both line because it has connected to our Tambapavani plant. So we shut down one circuit and carry out line stringing for that circuit. After completion of that one, that was completed in last April. We have taken the other line outage, and now that second line stringing is in progress. We are expecting to complete it by December. So what we have learned from this one is, actually reconducting is a practical solution for increasing network capacity. So we are planning some more transmission lines in CB, that National System Operator and NTNSP, sorry for telling that my previous organization. So we are planning to reconduct some existing lines. Some of them are links line. We can easily find out matching conductor with high tensile low sag. And this technology significant capacity enhancement, we can use the existing structures. First of all, we have to check whether that existing structures are strong enough for this transmission lines. So we have already checked that some of our own lines, around 20 years old, these are very good, and we can go for live line reconductoring. So Manavavuniya reconducting project demonstrate how utilities can integrate more renewable energy quickly and cost effectively. Because if we are go for that new transmission line, we will not be able to evacuate our power generation in Mullikulam and 50 megawatt wind plant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernando. Next, we have Lin Lu, the advisor and of SCC and head of Information Access Unit at ADB.
Sorry. Thank you, Natalie. And let me dive in right away. We have heard about the growing demand for electricity. We also heard ADB's new Pan-Asia Power Grid initiative from G1. And more specifically, we heard ADB's president talks about the old way of building transmission system is not working anymore. So now there are many issues to address. But I believe the most critical one is this. Transmission planning and design are still stuck on the dollar per kilometer rather than life cycle. Let me show you projects and that have proven life cycle costing is the better metrics. And by the way, and this is exactly how we already analyze generation investment. Sorry. ADB has provided technical and financial assistance in Nepal for decades. Starting in 2013, 2014, we helped the Nepal Electricity Authority, NEA, and with a challenging grid expansion project. It was originally designed as a 400 kV line and using ACSR conductors. But after a detailed analysis by ADB consultants and showed that a 200 kV line with ACCC conductor and could deliver the same technical performance at a lower total cost. So the project helped NEA move beyond the dollar per kilometer mindset. Since then, NEA has mainstreamed the use of ACCC conductors for both upgrading and new lines with several projects funded by ADB. In Bangladesh, the project was designed as a 400 kV line with ACCC conductor. The additional cost of the advanced conductor wasn't the primary issue, and the cost recovery period was the main concern for the project owner and the national transmission company. And this graphic shows how carbon pricing can be used as a viability gap financing. It's quite simple, and increasing the carbon price shortens the cost recovery period. For this project, in addition to AIIB co-financing and the Japan Fund for Joint Credit Mechanism pre-purchase carbon credits using grant co-financing to reduce the payback period. We have heard Mr. Fernando talk about this project in Sri Lanka. I want to mention it because it represents the huge opportunities across the region for upgrading existing transmission lines through reconducting, replacing ACSR with ACCC conductors. ADB also has financed other great enhancing technical solutions, including battery energy storage system and advanced net metering. And the projects listed here are all first-of-kind investment. Some have received concessional loan or grant co-financing from dedicated funds. So far, every project I mentioned use what you might call plain vanilla funding modalities. Basically, project loans with some soft money blended as needed. But to meet the objective of the Pan-Asia Power Grid initiative, we needed to do at least two things differently. First, upgrading existing lines must be prioritized, and for speed of implementation and for cost effectiveness. Investing in upgrading on the transmission line reduces the amount of capital needed for new lines. And keep in mind that securing right of the way for new lines is a major challenge in most countries. And so priority should go to inside the fence upgrades Second, we need new financing approaches. ADB's President Kanda mentioned that ADB plans to fund only half of Peggy's capital expenditure with our own funds, so we must crowd in commercial co-financing. ADB has various modalities, including policy-based loan, result-based loans. So one of the best options for crowd-in co-financing is the financial intermediary loan. And think back to the Bangladesh project I mentioned earlier, which had co-financing from AIB and concessional co-financing from JFGCM. And we can take that model and apply wholesale financing to a large number of similar retail level sub-projects. So the FI loans is well suited to supporting new technical solutions because the relatively high risk of any single sub-loan is spread across the FI's entire portfolio. So the FI modality is also excellent for leveraging concessional co-financing, for example, by using soft loans and grant to cover potential non-performing sub-loans. So I'll stop here, and I'm happy to answer questions later. And just remember, there is money for projects if there are projects for the money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully people in the room are feeling empowered by the fact that there is money for the projects. And next up, we will have Ms. Ziwei Liao, who's the Senior Investment Officer at the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank.
Thank you very much, Natalie, and thank you very much, ADB and CTGC Global, for inviting me to this very important and also inspiring discussion. So we have already heard from previous presenters about the technology and innovative solutions, advanced conductors, AI-enabled monitorings, and all various kind of technologies. And Reading also mentioned that in various kind of financing kind of solutions, and money is ready. So what is missing? If I may just complementing to what other speakers has already said, and would like to focus on knowing that what we need to build in nowadays. And then the question is, how do we finance it at scale and the speed that required? First of all, briefly, at AIIB, we are 10 years old. So our transmission portfolio has evolving, with the market trend for the last 10 years. So we started with traditional transmission grid upgrades, expansion. It was first project co-financed with ADB, actually in Tamil Nadu, India. And now our pipeline increasingly consists of ultra high voltage, backbone networks, renewable integration kind of corridors, and also the smart grid, smart metering deployment. So today we have approved about 7 transmission related projects, total 1 billion, primarily in South Asia, including 2 actually in Sri Lanka. The one project that we are currently preparing, which I like to spend a few minutes highlighting, is the Mandunaga Buddha 765 kV transmission line in Bangladesh. So historically, our investment in Bangladesh has mostly been, building the 230 kV or 400 kV kind of networks. But this one is 765 kV. In light of basically the function of this transmission line is to transmitting the renewable energies from this the generation center to load center. So the recent development in Bangladesh is concentrated around the Manahasri and Matabali Chattogram, the renewable energy corridor. And the load center remains in the capital city where near Dhaka is. This demands, the ultra high voltage transmission to deliver this energy very efficiently from a generation to load center. And we see this and more often in our transmission line investment and pipelines. And then one interesting thing for the design of this project is also that it builds actually physical assets to allow 765 kV, but we actually would operate initially at 400 kV. So this allows advanced investment, but also phased approach to kind of reduce the total required investment. So projects like this, and from what we are seeing happening globally, we see the three kind of things are in. Transmission line is no longer the previously ability or meeting the peak load. Is now functioning more like the driven by renewable generation penetration, and also gives us actually we call the two-end grid challenges. One side, in one hand, we need to managing the intermittencies of the renewable energy. On the other hand, we need single demand of AI, especially AI data center. We're talking about 100 megawatts of kind of load. And then typically the two are not located near to each other. In China, there is a ultra high voltage DC corridors transmitting renewable energy from west to east. Corridor programs are doing the similar thing, transmitting Gujarat to the Delhi and Mumbai load centers. And in the US, you see like the development of transmission lines is not the traditional regulators or utilities and is these technology companies get more and more involved in the transmission line development, even on the structure. They realizing this is one of the enabling infrastructure for them. And the second thing, the cross-border interconnection is become a financing problem. Recognizing that energy security and affordability cannot be just achieved through isolated national system. Or another way put it is with strategically connected infrastructure, we can be able to achieve higher energy security and lower energy costs by Jianwen's presentation on the Pan-Asian Grid Initiative. So with that, I mean, what is kind of also involving together the regional or cross-border interconnection modalities. Previously, we see most of these time limits, which I thought was for 7 minutes, but I will be expanding a little bit more. So it's basically going from IPP to grid, now to grid is utility to utility kind of financing, now to more a platform kind of financing, like the regional infrastructure financing facility, Southern Africa. And also you see this kind of approach to supporting each other, like the recent Tunisia and Italy interconnectors funded by the connecting facilities. And the third and probably most important trend is that financing structure themselves actually evolving. We see that the demands now increasingly come not just for the project first of all, for project preparation support. Project is getting more and more complicated and requires much more kind of upstream or upfront analysis. Is more of the financing intermediary tools used, including guarantees and risk sharing instrument. And thirdly, for financing, not just the concessional loans, but also blending in a way that, for example, some of the subsea cable project with 20 years, kind of in operate. So we are not expecting the private capital to be able to accept this 70 years return framework. So we need to have some kind of mechanism to help them to de-risking and also to arranging for this ultra long return period. And finally, we see the emergence of transmission specific financing platforms that we talk about, APG, ASEAN Power Grid, and then even bigger, the Pan-Asia Grid Initiative. So with that said, I also like to close say the challenge is never a technology itself or the interest of development, but as facing the challenging is how to deploy it at the scale, which need collaborations from both regulatory side and also the financing side. So let's hope to work together for the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great words to end on, hoping to work together. Now we see some of the financing options available. We'll have a final speaker. Mr. Ken Gao is a principal industrial consultant at Dragos Inc. Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody. Very quickly, this is me. I am a cyber consultant that works specifically in the Asia-Pac region, and we do look after industrial systems such as energy. So this is very much up my alley. I'm talking as a practitioner, and I use cyber and AI every day. So very quickly, I'll just give you an idea of how we frame or look at cybersecurity for an engineering energy system like this. This is the Purdue model. You see how it's breaking up the various levels, of components within the system. And at each level, there's, particular considerations that is complicated. So I can't cover it within this time span, but just realize there's different techniques and things that you need to do at every level. So I thought to start with what is good, a good example. And I chose this specifically for a number of reasons. One, this is very recent. This cybersecurity incident happened December 2025 to February 2026, so pretty new. Two, the asset owner in this situation is a humble Mexican water utility. I did not choose an asset-rich, affluent facility, right? Three, the attacker in this case used AI. So AI, very scary, the end of the world, right? Four, this Mexican utility defended the attack because they did two things. They had really good password policy controls that they used effectively. And two, they had effective security architecture. That is it, okay? No excuses. Everybody can do this. Everybody should do this. This is basic cyber hygiene, much like brushing your teeth, right? So if that is good, what is bad? On the left-hand side, this is 2025, year in review. By the way, all this stuff is accessible via the app. I've made references, so you can pull this stuff up for free. What you see on the left-hand side is statistics for last year, Europe. These are all European industrial assets. The numbers there are open systems that you can reach from the public internet, which means I, from any internet accessible device, can hit their front door right away. Not good, yeah? On the right-hand side is the fact that whether you're talking about clean energy or modern new energy systems, they are highly digital because they're not legacy infrastructure, which means that they tend to be distributed and very vulnerable if you don't follow the example of Mexico. Yeah? So don't be bad, be good. Yeah? Some more numbers, again, 2025. Good news for Asia Pacific, we only had 323 cyber incidents within our space, and only 25 of them were in the renewable section. So it's good. We don't have a high number of incidents, but the number is not zero, which means that you probably want to consider this in your strategic planning. Yeah? So the good news is that I personally believe that cybersecurity for industrial systems is actually not that hard. I don't understand why people think it's so complicated. You do not need the Marvel Avengers to defend your systems, yeah? Here is a white paper, again, for free. It tells you how to focus and prioritize your defenses for your systems. I don't have enough time to go through it, but there you go. But I will start talking about, yeah? So one, let's imagine I run a car insurance company and I have two customers, a middle-aged mom of 3 that has never had a parking ticket and a 25-year-old guy who thinks his Honda Civic is a race car, who has had multiple traffic accidents, yeah? Now, the upside risk to customer number 2 should be very high. It would not make sense for me to not account for the risk profile of 2 very different cases. And the logic still applies when you are financing energy projects. If you've got 100 projects that you want to capitalize or build on the other side, you probably want to do your due diligence properly, such as the Mexico example, yeah, to solidify your investment. It makes no sense to just blanket address all of them equally as if the risk profiles were the same, yes? Without that financial incentives, you do not spur the bad actors from improving. And if you're an investor, why would you touch an asset or an investment that is risky? It makes no sense, right? 2 and 3, having good cyber policies such as strong password procedures and having secure architecture, this is not expensive. These are contractual requirements that you give to your vendor or your integrator. This is not rocket science. You don't need to be a highly technical person to follow standards that are already mature and commonplace. 3, if you're outsourcing your skills, that's fine. You probably want to put in SLAs. And then 5, which is there has to be visibility. I find it terrible that we will talk about energy resilience and never talk about cybersecurity. The numbers that I showed you previously should be quite obvious and known to everybody, yes? The fact that it is not is probably not a great sign, yeah? And so, in closing, I'll leave you with a few points. 1, whether it's green energy systems or new ones, they are highly vulnerable to digital attacks, so please protect them, yes? 2, the gap is not financial, it is paperwork, configuration, and due diligence, okay? 3, we all have responsibility to improve and make sure that our initiatives are successful. This is not a technical engineering problem. This is everybody's problem, all right? So that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm going to ask the rest of the speakers to kindly make your way to the stage and take your seat here. In the meantime, it was great to see all of these presentations and we got to see technology options, some very futuristic looking grid options. We got to see some funding options. We heard that if there's a project for the money, there's money for the project. Then we heard about implementation examples, some examples in Sri Lanka that are very promising. And then we ended on maybe a bit of a tough note, but also happy on the risks, on cybersecurity in particular. And personally, I found it to be quite reassuring to know that we don't all need to be cybersecurity experts, but we do need to do our due diligence and do our homework to make sure that we're managing to make a responsible energy system of the future. So I'm going to move here to ask a couple of questions to our speakers. And I do want to ask everyone to keep your responses to 1 minute. 1. Okay? I'm going to start getting tough at this part of because everybody's got to get to their coffee break. Okay, so I'll ask a couple of different questions. So the first one is that we heard there was compelling economic case for reconductoring over new build, but deployment remains slow in many, maybe most countries. So I want to ask a couple of panelists, what was the barrier that you've encountered? And maybe we can start with the example from Sri Lanka.
Yes. So actually, that for that reconducting of existing lines is very important at this stage because I think most of the countries they have a lot of transmission line that can be reconstructed. I mean, reconducting. In our CB, we have already identified several transmission lines that can be easily reconducted and upgrade to the double capacity. So the main challenge what we encountered in finding a transmission line route for new transmission lines. So this is a good solution for reconducting of existing line to increase the carrying capacity.
Thank you so much. So maybe we can also turn to Ms. Lin Lu to also answer the question.
Sure. Thank you. And other panels already mentioned the benefits of reconducting, right? And the main benefit of reconducting, I think we heard from others, is the right-of-way. So we can avoid this issue. And there are also other benefits I don't want to repeat, but to talk about the challenges, for me, I think the challenge first is the existing tower may need reinforcement. And although the capacity of the transmission line can be significantly boosted by reconducting, however, the capacity increase can be limited by the substation, the existing corridor capacity, and the substation. And also, when you are doing the reconstruction, reconducting, doing construction, you also need to plan your line outage. So when you make a decision if you want to reconducting or build a new line, and you need to evaluate systematically and to come up with a decision accordingly. And you have to read all the trade-offs compared to the benefits.
Okay, great. Another example of when you should do your homework. So I wanted to ask another question, going back to some of the questions about data. There's a lot of excitement about AI for grid optimization, a lot of excitement about AI in general at the moment, but AI systems require clean, structured, real-time data pipelines to function well. And so I was wondering if Charles and then Ken, you could comment on how mature is that data infrastructure in the utilities in your view, and where is the gap? Is it more of a technology or an organizational side gap?
Oh, sorry. Clarify when you say data structure, like, are you talking about like the energy requirements for an AI data center, or are you talking about the analytical data for monitoring and managing it?
The analytical data.
They tend to be highly, proprietary. Yeah, like the frontier companies tend to keep that pretty tight and close. They generally don't like share that type of information. Yeah, I would imagine that they would have very high requirements on data modeling, especially because AI models, so if you're training, it's a very long run, okay? If you're just doing inference, if it's just answering your questions, it's very bursty. But in either scenario, the prior requirements are substantially beyond what is normal. They cannot tolerate any power fluctuations at all as input. And so it is a very different setup, and it is very challenging to keep it running, because the minute you lose that, you lose that run, and it's a huge loss of investment. So yeah, it would be very high and very proprietary to the architecture.
Yeah, great question. I think that's a big industry challenge. It's like analog versus digital. And so there's a big fight in most utilities through the engineering sector to, do we go digital or we stay analog? And for me, AI is coming, whether you like it or not. And so for me, the faster, and I'll point to some example of, McKinsey, all the companies now, if you don't do AI, then your skills, and they're basically downgrading the people that don't work with AI. And so as a utility, this data is coming. AI is coming. These data centers are going to be built, whether you like it or not. And so for me, you need to adapt to it. And the faster you'll do it, the more secure it's going to be, and you won't have these cyber risks, that you will have. So for me, in terms of the data, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And so I think, and we work with we work across 80 countries right now. We work with, we've done 1,500 transmission lines. And I think the utilities are, while they're not the fastest, a lot of them are really catching up and really starting to go digital. And I think that's a huge game changer, and that's where it's going.
Thanks, Charles. I'll get you to not put the microphone down just yet, but you've you talked to us about some very futuristic sounding data generation capabilities and data collection capabilities through some advanced conductors. Can you let us know, I know this is a project that's quite new, but this data, what would it be used for, and who is using it?
So I'll put this out there that we've never had this data before, okay? And so it's new territory. We're very excited to be part of this new territory, and we're also very excited to have Google partner with us to get as much as we can, and I think earlier it was said on planning, because we plan, and to be honest, like I've worked in a Canadian utility before, and we have not been that great at planning. And so I think this data is very welcome in that area, and it's key because as of today, if you look at the master plan of most of the countries in the room, I don't think there's probably like 1 or 2 or 3% that have reconductoring part of it, and there's other GTs that also could be part of it. But for me, like in terms of the data, Google is a big enterprise. They can protect the data, but also utilities are big and they can have their own system. So it's going to be up to them to decide. And according to Ken, also it's like brushing your teeth, so shouldn't be a problem in my opinion.
Okay, great. So we heard new data is coming. We're going to have more data in the future, in our grids of the future. We don't know exactly what it'll all be used for yet, but a lot of better planning. And when we're having this data, we should make sure that we're doing our homework and brushing our teeth and having good cybersecurity to ensure that we have responsible grids of the future. All right, we'll move away from the question of data and look back at the question of financing to our three financiers on the panel here. We did see that life cycle costs can be lower and in advanced conductors, but project financing is still evaluating upfront capital costs in a lot of cases. So from both the ADB, our two representatives from ADB and from AIIB side, what are the ways that you're looking at being able to evaluate projects differently to better integrate the opportunities for advanced conductors?
Thank you, Natalie. This is a great question. Life cycle cost analysis has been used for other sectors already, right? And it's nothing new. And how AIIB and ADB can work together to bridge this gap, in my view, three ways, right? So the first is we can promote life cycle cost procurement. So rather than the least cost lowest debate, then we evaluate other factors based on like energy loss, maintenance, reliability, and carbon saving. So as we use this life cycle analysis in other like urban and water and transport already. And the second is we, as the MDBs, we can finance the higher upfront cost. So normally our funding is concessional. So we can help with that higher upfront cost, definitely. And the third is, and Jivan earlier talked about technical assistance from ADB. From ADB side, we can help to modernize the framework. For me, if we want a project to work and to be successful, then three factors, none of them can be missed. First, funding. Second, technology. Technology is ready, like a Great Vista and other technologies. And funding, you have like ADB, AIIB, then also the third part I just mentioned, the framework, the policy, the regulatory framework. So we have to make sure all those in place, then we can get a project working or successful. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think Lulin has already covered the full part. What I just like to kind of, again, supplement on this is that I think people would have a question. Okay, knowing there's this most advanced conductors, technology out there, why not every project is using the most advanced, most smartest technologies, right? So I think there's always a, we call the pro and con analysis. That's why for every project, we need to do detailed engineering design feasibility studies, because what we are facing is very heterogeneous situations. So what we, given conductor as an example, we're facing the trade-off between, less transmission losses, right? And maybe also a little higher transmitter capacities, but that means you may have to have a higher capex. You would require, higher capacity on your future maintenance and operations. And also, if you are deploying the smart, instruments, it's meaning you have the right capacity, human capital to later on operate it well. So, and also, we are going to a place that accessing, the demand and the supply is right. Now the right moment, for example, to deploy ultra high voltage. Or this is something going to be needed more like in 5 years and then time horizon. So right now we may do it in a steps approach, that what we are doing now in Bangladesh. And also we're maybe in the, countries, geographic locations that you have extreme weather conditions. You have a very complicated terrain situations. There's a lot of things to consider. And we as financiers, especially as MDBs, we care very much about the economic returns of the project, not just the financial. The economy means the kind of investment and the money that we put in public financing or private capital, and the kind of economic returns that we're generating from that has to be optimized. Yeah, thank you.
I will just be very brief, and I make only two supplementary points to what my other colleagues have said. One is any investment MDBs do, we also have to demonstrate that what is the value that we are adding. So it's not just providing money. So what else are we doing in addition to providing the financial? So this is where promotion of use of the advanced technologies or new business models and so on. So we always have to demonstrate that one. So it becomes one of the criteria of why we are financing that particular project. So that's one. The second thing is on this life cycle cost versus capital cost. I think Lynn already mentioned, but we have also started using the merit point criteria in our procurement evaluation also. So it also provides a score not only for the financing, but also on the technical side of it, so that ADB will be able to support those kind of technologies or projects with innovative features as well.
Thank you so much. We have time for maybe one question from the audience, if anyone's feeling brave. There's a speaker there, speakerphone.
Good afternoon. I'm Sonam Tobje from Bhutan Power Corporation. We are TD company. First, on from the ADB, we want to know the status on the SASEC. So SASEC has started for quite some time, but now we hear nothing about it. I mean, we haven't heard so much about it. On the reconductoring, the Sri Lanka said that you did the reconductoring because you had a double circuit, right? But in the single circuit case, so how you would plan the reconductoring while ensuring that there are no outages to the customers. On the AI, can AI be regulated? Because as a utility, we work under a regulatory regime. So in the absence of any regulation, so now as a utility, I cannot tell to a customer it is AI-driven data. The forecast of load that I made is AI-driven, and at the end of the day, so no responsibility is assumed by the utility to a customer. So I have 3 questions. Thank you.
There is one question related to SASEC. Maybe it wasn't clear in my presentation. SASEC is doing a lot of activities, and even you are from Bhutan, so we are already supporting various activities in Bhutan as well. And then there are many activities or programs that are been launched or requested by the SASEC countries are ongoing. So this PAGI initiative is not replacing any of those programs. All of those country programs will continue operating the way they are. This PAGI will provide additional support, additional boost for these programs to continue. Yeah. So I'll be happy to explain more of what we are doing in Bhutan, or how country of Bhutan is benefiting from the SASEC program as well. Yeah.
I just want to add on the reconductoring. So right now we're doing a single circuit in Ghana. No, sorry, not Ghana. We're doing it in Gabon. Sorry. So it's a single circuit. 10 years ago, we did another single circuit in Texas, 330 kV, 400 kilometer. That was the first one that we did. And basically how it's done is you take one line at a time, you do a temporary pole. So you bring one line to the temporary pole, reline the one that's no longer there, and then re-energize that one. And so you are doing it, the lights stay on. That project was even finished before time frame. And that you do reconductoring hot. It's a little more expensive because you need those specialized teams, but you do it because you don't want it might be a main line, like it was said, and you don't want to shut it down. And on the data, the regulator, of course, most utilities in Asia and across the world actually are regulated. And so that is a challenge, and that's a thing also when we're talking about planning. The regulator is a big part of that because, and I'll give an example in the US, the transmission went from 3% of your bill to 30% of your bill. And so for a lot of countries, you don't want that to happen. And so you want to keep your costs low. And that's why lately in the US, FERC is a regulator, and they issued an order. I don't remember there's four numbers. And they said to utilities, you need to start with reconductoring first before you do any new line, and then you go for a new line. But that's, from my perspective, it's not even enough because we also need to give incentives. And I think that the question was asked earlier is, what's the biggest challenge? Why is this technology not been adopted? And from my perspective, the world works on incentives. And I think regulator has not done enough to incentivize the utility. Some of them do it by themselves, but a lot do not. And so that's one thing that could definitely be improved. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Ken.
So I'll answer your AI regulatory question. I seem to be getting that a lot here. Okay, so the short answer is basically this. Within industrial control systems, whether it's NERC-CIP or it's IEC 62443, there are already existing frameworks for regulatory requirements and whatnot. They already exist. They are very mature. Okay, and many other countries just copy the U.S. frameworks and just adapt it to their local standards and preferences. So these regulatory requirements, they are not descriptive. They do not say you have to do A, B, C. They just say something in general because there is a wide range of critical infrastructure organizations with varying requirements. So they can never be truly descriptive. So if you're expecting to pull up one of these documents and it tell you you need to do A, B, C, you're going to be disappointed, right? How you go about interpreting these documents, it's a wide range. Some do it very well, some do it poorly. So the short answer to your question is that you don't really need to do anything. It already exists. They don't stipulate here's an AI system versus a power control system. The philosophy is all the same, the structure is the same, so it already exists. The real heart of the problem that you're talking about is that people just don't understand AI because they don't use it, they don't know how to design it, they don't know how to manage it. That is the real problem. It's not regulatory.
Okay, thank you so much. So that's all the time we have for questions for today, but I invite you all to come up and ask the speakers afterwards if you have any leftover questions. We had a great opportunity today to learn about the different types of technologies available, why advanced conductoring has such a solid business case according to our panelists, and why there definitely is money for these kinds of projects. We got to see also from Sri Lanka a really positive, really inspiring example of existing project. And then we got to hear about some of the important risks, but very, very easy solutions, or simple solutions, I should say, on how we can manage this responsibly. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.